All right. Good evening. How are we? Um, it's Sunday evening. I haven't done a live like this in a while. It feels like. So, with everything that's going on right now, I think it's worthwhile just spending a little bit of time together, and I will answer any questions that you have. We'll spend some time talking about things properly, and see what help I can render by way of just sharing a bit of my information, a bit of my knowledge. We're going to give this let's go for 45 minutes flat out. Um, I'm here for your questions. So if you do have questions, then you know what to do. Put them in the chat and we get straight to them. Before we get started, though, maybe just a little bit of an update in terms of things going on. Really, really important stuff. Now, look, there's a lot of news at the moment going around. And obviously, there are a lot of opinions also going around as well. I think it's really important in times like this that you are discerning of where you're spending your energy and the mediums that you're paying attention to, that you're giving your time to. There's a lot of people on TikTok, a lot of people on Instagram, a lot of people here on YouTube spouting a load of just nonsense. Please be discerning. That isn't say block everything out, because I'm a fan of getting different points of views and different opinions. You need that in order to form your own opinion. But be careful and be mindful of the fact that a lot of the time when people are on TikTok or other platforms, that they are saying things to go viral, or they're saying things for effect. And I think it's important that you understand and are able to discern that. Um, Second thing, you can do me a massive, massive favor by smashing the like button. I don't do this often. I'm very, very bad at kind of asking people to do this for me. But if you are watching this, the way YouTube essentially works is if a video goes live and people don't interact with it, they just think it's rubbish, it gets pushed down, nobody sees it. And then the 45 minutes that I'm going to give up to you here for free to help you and help other people, YouTube don't then push that. So you can do me a huge favor by smashing the like button if you find value in this, and also sharing this if you do find some value in it as well. There's a lot that's been happening for me personally, and yes, it's been very exciting stuff. There's a lot of very exciting stuff in the pipeline as well. But for those of you who follow me on Instagram, and those of you who follow kind of like the general journey and some of the stuff that I've been doing, you may have spotted me on Channel 4 on Packed Lunch, Steph Packed Lunch on a Tuesday. I'll be doing that show until the end of the year, every Tuesday. And that's a really big move, bearing in mind that this started on YouTube in 2020, right? And it's very, very bizarre, very, very surreal to say that. I've got a regular slot on a national TV show in the afternoon. And to be honest, that show is the perfect place to talk about the stuff that we talk about here on this channel, because Packed Lunch is kind of a fun, laid back laid back show where they talk about general affairs. They have a laugh, they have a bit of lunch, and they have a segment with me where for 10 minutes we talk about something that is money related. I take questions, do what I do pretty much here on YouTube, live on Channel 4. So it's a really, really good feeling, and it's been a massive learning curve. Obviously, that means that I am less I'm less abundant with time now, and so I have to be very intentional around the things that I'm doing, and I have to be a little bit more streamlined and efficient, because obviously it's a big commitment in terms of prep and in terms of stuff like that. The program is called Steph's Packed Lunch on Channel 4. It's normally on in the afternoon between 12:30 and 2 o'clock. So and then there's lots of other stuff that's in the background as well that probably won't come to fruition until next year. As and when they happen, I'll let you know. But again, I just want to remind people who may be watching this live. There's some of you on here already, and some people will be watching this on the replay. You've got to go after what you aspire to. You have to listen to your gut. You never know where things are going to take you. This is very much. I have to pinch myself, because when I was 19, I was homeless. I was living on the streets, and if I could go back in a DeLorean and tell the 19-year-old me that you'd have a regular slot on a national TV show, I don't think that 19-year-old me would believe me. And so you never know what's going to happen. You've got to put your best foot forward first and foremost. You've got to, yes, take the risk, believe in yourself, work hard. But the message is, do not procrastinate. Get going right now. Get going and just stick to it. And if you can find something that you enjoy or have an intrinsic interest in, even better, even better. Right. Okay. So let's have a look at some of the questions that are in here. Let's have a look at this one. Okay. Good luck with the new process. Thank you. Ray Diallo continues. Sometimes mention inflation index bonds. What's your opinion about this type of investment? Inflation index bonds. So I've not used one. I've not come across them. But just by looking at the title and the definition of what they are, they will be a bond that will track inflation. I've not I've not used them in practical terms, so I don't know how they operate from in a practical term. I'll need to do some additional work on that. I certainly haven't come across it in all of my years as a advisor or working in wealth management for fund houses or investment houses. So it may be an American thing, an American instrument, but I haven't come across one of them. But looking at the title of it, inflation index bonds, I think it will be something that tracks inflation, which could be quite effective right now. But I've not come across anything. Unfortunately, I've not come across it. I've not used it, so I couldn't really will give you a full detailed thought process on it, if I'm honest. So yeah. Um, yes, please do not forget to like the video and share. Let me just change the graphics on this. I don't like that graphic specifically on these kind of lives. Please do like and share the video. It will really, really help me. Thank you very, very much. Okay, look, so we've got time. We've got time. We've got a lot of time. So any questions that you have, now will be the time to ask them. There's a lot going around at the moment, obviously, around interest rates, around inflation. The budget has caused one hell of a kerfuffle. Um, I'm not even sure that the budget is going to look the same on October 31st when more details come out. I think it's going to look very, very differently to what was originally proposed was it 3 weeks ago now? Something like 3 weeks ago. I think it'll be very, very different by the time we get around to October 31st. So, you know, who knows what's going to happen. But I think ultimately what I have been saying to people is this. You need to be prepared. You need to be doing everything within your power to secure your own personal finances right now. And yes, paying attention to the news is important because um, you need to get insights and you need to get nuggets of information that might be useful in terms of helping you decide what you're going to do, but also be discerning of that information as well. And then actually, let me just talk about this one thing really, really quickly because this is really, really important, and this ties in very nicely to what we talk about here on this channel. So, investing. I'm getting tons and tons of questions from people talking about investing, pound cost averaging in. I'm just going to keep going in. Okay, look, this is completely fine. But may I just remind everyone that your decision to invest is your own personal decision. And here's the question for anyone who's watching. Are you invested in the markets because social media is telling you that that's what you need to do? Or are you invested in the markets, number one, because you know exactly what you're investing for? You've got a clear goal. You understand your timeline. You understand risk management. Are you investing for those reasons? Because if you're investing for the former, you're likely going to be doing things that if you were investing for the latter, you wouldn't be doing. And I say that to say this. We are in for a very, very volatile period of time. And things are going to get pretty bad with inflation. I mean, just the language that the Fed is using in regards to their fight against inflation. So the live that I did earlier this evening, that talks about what the language that the Fed is using. They are fearful that they're not doing enough to combat inflation. And they are going to be tightening their monetary policy even more aggressively now, which means that interest rates in the States are going to go up. We've already seen that commentary from Andrew Bailey today, him basically saying that the measures around monetary policy and their battle against inflation is going to require stronger measures than what they thought they were going to need in August when the interest rates went up by 0.5%. this is going to impact the investment markets. Now, I'm seeing a lot of kids talk about, and when I say kids, I don't mean it to be condescending, but these are 20 somethings, 19-year-old kids talking about pound cost average in, pound cost average in, and talking about investing via themes, which is fine. In principle, that's completely fine. But there's never any talk of risk management. Now, look, it is okay if you're panicked and you're nervous about the markets to just say, you know what, I think I'm just going to take some time out. I'm going to pause investing for the time being. I'm going to resume once I've had a chance to kind of gauge where the markets are, so on and so forth. There is nothing wrong with that. This narrative that you pound cost average into the market as they're falling, yes, it is a sound principle. But if you feel that it doesn't sit right with you, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's personal finance for a reason. It's your money. It's your decision. What I'm trying to say here is do not be influenced by what social media is telling you should be doing. You should do what you think you should be doing, what you feel is right for you. That's the most important message I want to leave people with on this live this evening, because as things get more difficult, as monetary policy tightens across the globe, and certainly here in the UK, we are going to see impacts on the market. Now, psychologically, if you haven't thought about the risk management of your investing and you haven't got a goal, you've not talked about your timeline, so you don't really have any specifics around why you're invested in the first place. I talk about long term, and long terms tends to be this buzzword now. I'm a long term investor. Okay, but what does that actually mean? What are you investing for? If you don't have that detail down properly, like clear, so much so that you could touch it, that you could feel it, then when things get really, really tough, you're going to start looking at your portfolio with an air of panic, an air of uncertainty, and it's not a good place to be in as an investor. So please bear that in mind. Yes, investing is great. It's an opportunity when a recession hits to really put some money into the market and build for the future. But are you ready for it? That's the most important thing. Right, let's get to some other questions. I know that there's a lot that's basically come in here. Let's get this one from Rob. Hi, Pete. Great to hear of your success. Thank you, mate. I'm near to retirement. Would I be better putting my next few years' money into savings rather than bonds after what's happened? Really good question. Really, really good question. Okay, so I can't tell you what to do because that will be financial advice and I need to be very, very careful. But look, I can give you the train of thought as a former financial advisor. So if we're working with a client who is close to retirement, the key priority is cash flow. So the provision of your retirement income. That is the most important thing. That is the top of the pyramid agenda, right? Cash flow, income provision. That's the most important thing. Now, there are different ways that we might go about trying to answer this question of how do we provide the income. Annuities might be an option. Annuities have been in the news recently because annuity rates have gone up. Historically, they were very, very poor. So you might consider an annuity. But the thing with an annuity is you've got to remember, if you are giving away £50,000 in exchange for, I don't know, something like £2,000-3,000 in income for life, your capital is gone. And if you die relatively quickly or relatively short period after you've given away your cash, that's it, it's gone. So annuities have their pros and their cons, but annuity could be a good way that you'll do it. The other way to do it is what you're suggesting here. You could potentially put that money in cash and hold that aside. Now, obviously, inflation becomes the real question there, right? Because inflation's at an all-time high. It's unlikely that you're going to be able to get it into a savings account that is going to keep up with inflation. But at least you have the peace of mind in knowing that you've got your income there for the next year, maybe two. Now, some advisors will have a look at putting the next year's worth of income aside. So if that's 25 grand, 25 grand aside in cash. It is a viable way of going about it. Some advisors may decide to go and put money in other things where there might be dividend payouts to supply the income. But I think it's really down to you, but there is nothing wrong with holding some capital aside, so cash behind for your first year's, maybe even your second year's worth of income, because that way, any money that is left over, you know you're not going to need to access it for 2 years, and you could probably afford to take maybe just a little bit more risk with that. The question that I'll ask you though, Rob, is, maybe you have seen a financial advisor, maybe you haven't. If you do have a financial advisor, they should have done all of this in a cash flow modeling forecast for you. And it sounds quite complex, but it's actually really, really good. It just means that they can map out your income stream, so what income you need over the next 30, 40 years until you're maybe 100. And they can say, right, if the markets crash and the market does this, this is what happens to your income. And whilst it sounds quite nonchalant, actually it's quite a nice exercise to go through, because you have complete and utter peace of mind to know, okay, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be absolutely sweet. And it's one of the added benefits that a financial advisor can provide you in doing that cash flow modeling. But if you don't have one, by all means, you can put some money aside in the cash. It wouldn't be into cash. It wouldn't be a bad strategy, but you just need to be mindful of inflation. Maybe some of the accounts like premium bonds might be a good place to put it. At least you'll be entered into a prize draw. There was an account by Chip that the prize winnings for that was like £10,000, and it's a monthly entry. So the more you have in the account, the more tickets you have into the draw. The maximum amount you can actually win is £10,000. So that might be an option for you. I will have a link for that. Actually, I'll put a link to that. I'll pin it in the comments section to this video after this is all said and done. So maybe go and check that out. But that's potentially somewhere where you could put the money. Fuzzy, let's have a look at this. For those asking about TV appearance, yes, Stats Pack Lunch, it's Channel 4, also available on Channel 4 on demand. Thanks, Fuzzy. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's have a look. What else we've got here? All right. Let's take this question. Andrew, hi, mate. Only 21. In the current market climate, would you suggest that I still invest in stocks and shares ISA every month? I invest currently every month into the VUAG from Vanguard, which reinvests. I'm guessing you're going to say it's going to reinvest any dividend payments, right? It's not it's an accumulation fund, I would imagine, is what you're saying there. I mean, look, again, I can't give you financial advice, but you are 21. So if you're investing because, again, you need to understand why you're investing. So what are you investing for? Are you investing for a house deposit? And when is that going to be? If you're looking to get on the property ladder in the next 5 years or so, then the question will be, how are you going to invest to make sure that your risk profile is right? So the level of risk that you're taking is right. Because if you are investing for, say, a house deposit in, say, 5 years, you're going to need that money accessible in 5 years. And so you have to invest the money appropriately, because you don't want to get there in 5 years where you're going to need the money. The markets are down. You can't cash in that money to purchase a house. So you've got to be kind of clear on why you're investing. Now, let's just assume you are investing because you don't need access to the money until you're 40 and it's going to be for something else. Then you're 21, mate. You've got 19 years pretty much ahead of you. No matter what happens now, it will be a blip in the road. I mean, the markets tend to perform better over a longer period of time than it does over the short period of time. Again, it comes down to risk management. So would I suggest that you still invest in stocks and shares? Yes, if you are comfortable in doing so. It goes back to what I was saying before. Are you investing because social media is telling that you should be investing, or are you investing because you're clear on your goal? You're clear on your timeline, how long you're looking to invest for. You're clear on how you're going to manage risk. Those are key fundamental questions. I've been saying this now for the past 2.5 years. In a market where everything's going up, people will look at me and say I'm boring, but these are the fundamental principles of investing that you need to understand. And as long as you've got a clear definition of the answers to those questions, then by all means continue. But if you're worried about the markets at the moment and you're worried about, putting money in and seeing the money fall in value, then again, it is completely okay for you to pause for the time being. But you do have time on your side, mate. You're 21 years old. If you're not going to need this money until you're, much, much later in life, late 30s, early 40s, mate, it's going to be a blip in the road, really, to be honest. But risk management is going to be key, really, really key. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. No, it's quite surreal being part of a TV show. It's very bizarre, but yeah, it's been a learning curve as well. It's really, really good. But thank you. Someone's talking about. Okay, is this a question or a comment? Let's have a look. Hunt is after Truss his job. The guy was an advocate for lockdowns and the EU return. I think, look, when you think about it, again, I don't like talking about politics too much, but this is where politics does intersect with with the content and the subject matter of this channel, I think, look, you are going to have people of opposing views and opposing opinions in any situation. You have that in companies, you have that in families. A political party is no different. The key thing is, can they work together? I hope that they can. That's the most important thing, because with everything that's happened over the last 3 to 4 weeks, it's clear that they need to be pulling in the same direction, because we need them to. We can't afford another faux pas. We can't afford for the markets to further lose confidence in the government. We need everyone pulling in the same direction. And whilst there are divisions there, that isn't necessarily conducive. And I'm hoping that there are adults in the room that will be able to pull together, because the alternative is it's just horrible. This is a really good question. Thank you very, very much. So, do I think it's better to wait to buy a house? This is a really good question. I actually spoke about this on Packed Lunch a couple of weeks ago. Look, I think there are a number of issues here, right? Property prices increasing, mortgage rates going up. Well, property prices potentially falling, mortgage rates going up, affordability becoming an issue, especially if you're servicing other debts and you're trying to get a mortgage as well. That's also a challenge. So the bank criteria might be tightened, and typically it will get tightened in recessionary times. My view is this: if you're looking to buy a house to live in, then you should continue to look, and you should continue to, just buy somewhere. At the end of the day, you're not buying a house. You're buying more than a house. You're buying security. You're buying peace of mind. So one of the things that we're talking about, actually, I can't say this. Actually, I don't think I can say this. I can't let the cat out of the bag. You'll have to tune in on Tuesday, right? But one of the things that is a consequence of all of the interest rate hikes that we've seen and the impact that it has on mortgages is landlords are putting up rents. So even as a renter now, if you think, right, I'm going to stay renting, your renting cost is going to go up anyway. So if you think about renting cost versus the cost of a mortgage, forget the property price valuations for the moment. Completely forget that. Simply think about mortgage payment versus rent. Most people know that a mortgage is cheaper than your rent. So if your rent is being pushed up because interest rates are going up and your landlord can't cope with the payments, yes, your mortgage payments might be going up here if you go and buy now, but it's still going to be cheaper than you rent. And fundamentally, this is the most important thing: you've actually acquired a property which will appreciate in value over time. So I personally think that if you want to buy a house, don't wait, go and have a look. Go on to see if you can secure something. And pay attention to what's going on in the market. Maybe things fall in your favor. I've got a friend of mine who literally just bought a house in Tunbridge Wells for him and his family, was expecting to pay about £12,000 in stamp duty. The mini budget means that he no longer has to do that, as long as that part of the mini budget remains, right? He saved himself £12,000. So you use the circumstances to your advantage if they fall in your favor. But I think continue to look, and just bear in mind, you're buying a house, you're buying security, you're buying a roof over your house, you're buying an asset that is going to appreciate in value over the long term. And I think that should be the biggest driver for people. You need to strip it back, take a step back and just think about the fundamental. What are you doing? What are you acquiring? You're acquiring an asset. And that's the most important thing, in my view. I'm just looking for questions. Bear me 1 second. Okay, there's a good question. I was speaking about this a moment ago on Instagram. So, is it a good time to buy gold, physical, and ETFs to preserve wealth? Well, potentially, yeah. I mean, gold is a finite commodity, right? And in recessionary periods, you typically see gold do pretty well. But you know, even if you buy gold in an ETF, right? I mean, let me just have a look at this very quickly. I think gold is currently down. So you have to understand that you're not buying something that isn't going to be moving, that isn't going to be volatile. Yes, it will be volatile, it will go up and down, but ultimately, it is a diversification tool. It's something that you can use to diversify your portfolio, so you don't have all of your money in equities that are very, very volatile, right? So it could be a really good option. And the other thing to just bear in mind is, back in the day, you would have things that would correlate in terms of, if equities went down, bonds would typically go up, or if equities were doing really, really badly, gold would go up, and all this kind of stuff. You don't typically see that these days when it comes to the markets. I mean, I'm just looking at the gold chart right now. And if you go back to the 14th of October, the price of gold was 1,677. It's currently at 1,650. Okay, so it's still going to be volatile, but as a diversification tool, it could really, really work. And it's all about, what do you allocate to it? You just going to need to make sure that you come up with an asset allocation or a spread of your money that works for you specifically. All right, let me just do something really, really quickly, guys. All right, okay, look. I know I mentioned this at the beginning, but one of the ways that you can really help me out is by smashing the like button. So there's almost 60 people on here at the minute. We've got the likes at 31. If we can get that up to 40, that would be amazing. It just means that by the time we come off this live, for you to push this out to other people that may find value from what we're talking about, the likes button is a big indicator for that. So if you can smash the like button, it will really, really help me get this out and other people to benefit from the content as well. I appreciate it. Thank you. Um, okay, here's a question about mortgages. Will this crazy rise in mortgage rates impact me if I roughly only need 20% loan to value next year on a small property? What pre-advice can you give? I'm not ready to buy property until another 6 to 9 months. Good question. Okay, cool. So how this typically works is this. If you have a large deposit for a property, right? So you're putting a large deposit in. So in this instance, you're putting an 80% deposit into the value of the house, then you're going to be having access to really attractive rates because effectively the bank is taking less risk because they're lending you less money over the period of time that you're going to take out this mortgage for, right? So you will get better rates. But these rates that you're going to be offered will still be impacted by the Bank of England base rate increasing. So yes, it is going to impact you, but because you've got such a low loan to value, you're not going to see the 6% that we're talking about where the average 2-year fixed rate is currently sat. You'd get a significantly more attractive rate, but the increase in the bank rate is going to impact what you would get now compared to what you would get maybe in 6 to 9 months' time if we see another 4 or 5 interest rate hikes from the Bank of England pushing mortgage rates up. So whilst you're not quite ready now, and you're probably 6 to 9 months out, it might be worthwhile shopping around and just seeing what the rates are and doing the sums and the calculations, because it might be worthwhile getting in now. I mean, you're in a really good place if you only need a mortgage with a 20% loan to value. There is a minimum loan to value that you need to have. So you just need to make sure that you're not below some of the lenders' minimum criteria or minimum amount. But I'd still have a look at rates just to see what the game is and see what rates you might have access to. All right, let's talk about this because this is misinformation. Getting a mortgage is pointless punt when you consider payments will be in thousands in month for a rabbit hutch. It's complete and utter rubbish, mate. I'm sorry. I don't mean to, call this out, but it's rubbish. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you are acquiring an asset. And this is the thing that annoys me with new age financial content, right? They will tell you that buying a house that you live in is not an asset, it's a liability. No, it's an asset because let's not forget, you may not necessarily live in the house that you're going to buy the first time around for the rest of your life, but it's going to help you trade up to bigger properties. And at some stage in life, you're going to quit work. You're not going to be working anymore. Do you still want to be at the mercy of rent and inflation increases of rent when you retire? Probably not. You probably want to own your asset and have the financial residuals in your asset, in your home that you can call upon should you ever need it for things like long term care. This is the stuff that people don't understand because they read something on social media and they run with it because a millionaire has said it's a waste of time, when this millionaire is in a completely different tax bracket than you. This millionaire can afford to stay in hotels and pay, £50,000 a month for a hotel room because he has the cash flow, the resources to do it. For normal people, you should just forget that nonsense. It's full of just absolute baloney. For most people, your house is going to be your biggest asset and is going to be the biggest contributor to your net worth, and it's going to give you options in life. When you are old and wrinkly, you can no longer work, and you might need care home, or you might need some assistance when it comes to just your quality of life, and you need sums of money. If you rented all your life, you have nothing, particularly if you haven't invested. Okay. So it's acquiring of assets that don't, it's not just about the immediate now, it's the future. You're future proofing yourself. So this narrative that it's a waste of money, it's a pun, is absolute nonsense. You should be looking at buying houses. You should be looking at acquiring assets, because that's where your net worth is going to sit. And as property prices increase, it's going to give you choice for when you really, really need it later on in life. It's not just about the next 5 to 10 years. It's about when you're old and wrinkly and you want to retire, and you want to retire with some element of comfort. Do you still want to be paying rent when you're in your 70s? A landlord puts up the rent, you can't afford it because you've not got enough in your pension. Now you've got to think about going back to work, or you've got to move to a smaller place. Who wants that? I mean, seriously, who wants that? Is that really what you work all of your life to achieve? It's like playing Monopoly and never buying any property as you go around. So when you hear me say this, tell me in the comments whether I'm making sense or whether I'm talking absolute nonsense. Because if you've ever played Monopoly and you don't buy Mayfair, you don't buy all the other properties on there, what do you end up doing? You end up paying rent to other people. Who are the losers in Monopoly? The people who don't have any property. It's very, very simple. It's fundamental. You have to understand that. This narrative that keeps going around on social media is full of baloney, which is why you should be discerning of who you're listening to. Be very, very discerning on who you're listening to. Don't mean to call this out, but I see this so much in my comment section. And yeah, it's just not right. Someone's saying here, should I get an agreement in principle to lock in favorable fixed term right now? If I still don't even know what property I will purchase yet? I'm a little confused on how to mitigate that risk. So if you get an agreement in principle, the agreement in principle will last, I think you can have it in place for between 3 to 6 months. So the agreement in principle is we will lend you X amount of money. That will lock in the rate for you. So if you do have the ability to go and get one, go get one. Just go get one, because it means that if the bank rate increases, you've locked in that rate under the agreement in principle. So yeah, definitely a good idea. I've just lost where I was. Bear me 1 second. Let me just find it. Where was I? Okay, I've done that one. I've done that one. Okay, so this is a follow up here. So let's have a look at this. So as a single man, I'm screwed to get a mortgage. Rates are at a height where my 30K income would be 3/4 of my income just for the mortgage. I'm stuck renting. Okay, cool. Now look, so this is where many people are in this equation, right? Absolutely, many people are in this equation. So there's a few things that pop to mind here. Like, first and foremost, the struggle for most people is that property prices have risen so far in multiples of their annual income that it's hard for, on the calculator from a mortgage point of view, to be able to get the amount that you need. So typically it's 4.5 times your annual salary. So on a £30,000 salary, you're looking at £120,000, which means that if you're going for a house at 200,000, you need a massive deposit, right? Massive challenge. But look, there has been innovation. So if you're in particular professions, so if you're like a doctor, a teacher, something like that, or you work in the NHS or in medical field, there are 7 times salaries now. I spoke about this at the beginning of the year on this channel, 7 times salary. So you could potentially go, if you're in that field and you're earning at least £25,000, I think is the minimum, right? So this particular job group, 7 times your salary, that's £210,000. The thing is, you got to look at the options that are available to you and assess those options. But that doesn't still negate the fact that you need a deposit. Now, the deposit is often the biggest thing for people to, and that's the challenge, right? These things, like, if If you want to buy a £200,000 house and you talk about a 10% deposit, that's 20 grand. If you want to get in there with any more to lower your loan to value, the amount that you borrow against the property, then you need even more. So the challenge is, how do you get your deposit? Now, this is where we start talking about, we need to be realistic and we need to really look at the world for the in a harsh light. If you're on a 30K a year, how can you improve or maybe actually move and get a promotion, shop around? Typically speaking, in corporate land, and I can say this from experience, if you stay in one place for too long, you are stagnant in terms of your earnings. You will earn more money if you jump jobs and you move jobs to different companies. That sounds really, really crass, but it's true. The amount of people that I know in the corporate world who, one of my friends, Phil, he he does very well anyway, but he will skip jobs every 1 or 2 years, and he will get a 10%, 20% pay rise every 1 to 2 years because he moves around, because he wants to maximize his earnings. Now, if you can't do that, then the simple reality is you need to focus on generating more income. You have to. And that could be side hustles, that could be businesses, that could be anything. But to resign yourself to say, look, I can't do it, you're never going to do it if you don't first figure out how you can increase your income, or at least find a strategy towards your deposit. Now, that's often the hard bit. Now, from a practical point of view, this is what I generally say to first-time buyers. There's no point saying that, right, I can never afford it. Actually, go and have a look at the market. Where do you want to buy? What do you want to buy? How much is it going to cost you? So let's just say it's going to cost you £200,000 to buy this house, right? And let's just say you need a 10% deposit. Forget about the multiples for the time being. It's £20,000 that you need. Okay, realistically, what period of time could you save that money, right? Is it, you're a single man, so what period of time? Is it 2 years, 3 years? You need to set yourself a clear goal, because if you say, oh, I can never do it, you're never going to do it. Whereas if you say, actually, you know what? Sod this, I need £20,000. I'm going to try and do this in 5 years' time. And you put a marker in the sand and you're very, very clear and disciplined on how you're going to do that. You get started today. And in years' time, you've made a little bit of progress that you wouldn't have made if you hadn't made that decision. Now, the thing that most people struggle the most with is, right, okay, I've got £30,000 coming in. My rent is this much. My bills are this much. I don't have enough fat in between money that I can actually put towards that. Well, that's where we need to get real and start looking at, right, do you have any avenues where you can start to cut things in aid of the big goal? Now, in some cases that will work. Some cases it just isn't the case because there isn't enough fat to pull, which leads to my other point previously. Finding something that is going to give you either bigger money, more money in terms of your job, or side hustles, businesses, anything like, selling things on eBay, renting out your car parking space, anything. You need to increase your income. But, these are tough decisions, right? My parents couldn't help me with the deposit. Who's going to help me? I was homeless once upon a time. I came back to this country with 50 quid in my pocket. These things are challenges. They are difficult, but they're not insurmountable. I think that the first thing is being clear on what you need to achieve first, and then finding a way to tackle it. Look, human beings are wonderful creatures. We generally can perform feats that for some people are completely and utterly unthinkable. But the first step is recognizing where you are and recognizing what you actually need to do and what the task is ahead. Once you know what that task is, it might seem massive, but you don't eat an elephant by trying to swallow it in one go. You break it down into small bite-sized pieces and you try and work your way through it that way. And I know that may or may not seem helpful, but trust me, it's worked for me. It's worked for a lot of people that I work with, and it's practical steps. There's lots of things, lifetime ISAs, those things are available for you. That's going to be free money from the government. You have to understand what you're tackling first and foremost to move forward. Just looking at other questions. Bear me 1 second, guys. Okay, someone just asked, if you're planning to buy a house, should you do it now or just wait? I've kind of answered that before. Go and have a look at places, understand what you're looking at. You're buying a house at the end of the day, so you're looking to secure your future. You're looking to acquire an asset. The sooner you can do that, in my opinion, the better. But again, you need to think about your personal circumstances. Food Dweller, how you doing? Okay, so Lucy's asking this. I invest in Vanguard stocks and shares ISA and diversify well into different funds. Currently started to stack physical gold, would you recommend introducing silver or platinum alongside the gold? I mean, possibly. Possibly, I can't say really, to be honest, because I don't know. Number one, what you have, what percentages you have invested. I mean, you're saying you're diversifying across different funds in Vanguard, but the reality is in Vanguard, you're 100% in equity. If you're in any of the ETFs, they're 100% equity. And if you're doing different ETFs, so for example, if you're doing the VUSA, you're doing the VWRL, and maybe a combination of others, well, actually, you're cross pollinating and you're not going to be as well diversified as you think because the VWRL will have the S&P 500 in it. So you think you're diversifying, but you're not really. You are, but you're not. So diversification, that risk management in Vanguard can be a little hard to do because, what's your attitude to risk? Should you be invested in all in equity? Should you be having some bonds in there? Should you be having, gold, all this kind of stuff? In what proportion should you have them based on your risk profile? I don't know any of that. So I can't really say, right, it's worthwhile having gold, silver, platinum, and this is how you might structure it because I don't know the circumstances. The thing is, how are you feeling about the markets right now? If you go and buy gold and you go and buy silver and you go and buy platinum, would you feel more, okay, cool, I'm a little more relaxed if markets tend to go down now? Because again, it's going to be about, okay, if you look at your investment as a whole, so if it's £10,000, for example, how much have you got in Vanguard across those various ETFs that you're purchasing? How much have you got in gold? How much have you got in silver? How much have you got in platinum? If you look at the percentage, are you still, because you could have 80% in Vanguard, 20% in all of these other things and still be overexposed to the market because you still have 80% in equities. 80%. That may be too much of a risk profile for you. I don't know because I don't know your personal circumstances, but these are the things to consider. And this is one of the things where people talk about Vanguard. And yes, Vanguard is very, very good, but unless you know what you're doing, you won't know what bonds to buy with Vanguard. Won't know how to properly diversify your portfolio because a lot of the ETFs and a lot of the index funds are 100% equities. And that carries a huge amount of risk. Having the VWRL, the VUSA, the VUAG, having 4 different ETFs doesn't mean that you're diversified. Actually, the contrary. You're going to cross-pollinate and you may be in a position where you're actually pushing up your risk. You have to do a proper analysis. So maybe you should, but again, how do you feel? I guess is the question. If it's going to put you at ease and help you sleep better at night, then maybe you should as a diversifier. But again, remember, those things will also be volatile. They just won't be, or they shouldn't be as volatile as equities. Fati's saying here, I'm more worried about inflation and the weak pound than the downs of the market. I do wonder with push for what WF desires. Will the markets remain accessible to the common man and woman? I think they will. Look, it doesn't matter what happens to the markets. The markets could tank as long as you have investment apps and companies that have ETFs funds. You're always going to have access to it. That shouldn't even be a concern at all. What Fuzzy is saying here is right. If you go back and look at the performance of gold, I mean, back in the day, they would correlate. So you would see really good performance when markets are down in gold. That's not necessarily happening anymore. I mean, it feels like since 2008, 2007, there's been a massive divergence across asset classes and correlation. It's mad, really. It feels as though investment principles don't really stack up anymore, and so it becomes even more difficult for people to know what to do a lot of the time. And especially if you're a retail investor trying to do this on your own, there's lots of pitfalls, lots of things that you could get wrong. But, it's all about education at the end of the day. And I try and do my best here. But, there's only so much that I can share. I mean, look, the investment market is a very, very big, wide scope. I mean, I know a lot, but I know nothing when it compares to, if you sat me down with an investment manager who's constantly working in the bond markets, the equity markets, the property markets every single day. getting reports. My level of knowledge is minuscule compared to a person like that. And I think that's really important for people to appreciate, that you can watch YouTube channels and YouTube videos all you want. You only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know until you know that you don't know it. And oftentimes, if it's something that you should have known and you find out that you didn't know it and you should have known it, oftentimes it's too late. So the thirst for education, the thirst for knowledge, if you're going to do this on your own as a retail investor, you have to constantly be seeking out information, which is why I'm so much of an advocate of people, like, obviously watch my channel, take what you get from my channel and all this kind of stuff. But it's very important that you find other channels from people who are qualified, people who have experience, people who know what they're talking about, not just entertaining videos, right? I mean, YouTube is great, but that's one thing that winds me up about YouTube. If a video is entertaining, gets all of the watch, even though the substance may not necessarily be of any true intrinsic value in the real world, in terms of what do you actually do in terms of enriching and taking your knowledge to the next level. You know, you have to be really discerning around what you're watching and the content that you're following. And it's difficult because, again, what do you watch out for? What do you listen to? You don't know sometimes. And so, you know, it is very, very tricky, and it's all very well and good when markets are going up. But let me ask you this. All of the channels that are talking about this stock is the next 10x, this stock is the next 100x, where are they now? Pretty silent, I bet. All of them. Where are all the accounts that were talking about this meme coin, this NFT, this crypto? Where are those accounts right now? Pretty silent, right? Because the fundamentals, they don't talk about the fundamentals that have that long-lasting compounding benefit. I mean, we talk about foundationary stuff. My investment course talks about why we invest, inflation. It talks about investor psychology. It talks about timeline theory, risk management, asset allocation, asset classes, how asset classes relate to your risk profile, whether you're an adventurous, medium, or a low-risk investor. All of that stuff is inside the course. All of that stuff is foundations so that you can start to build upon from it. It sounds boring when you say it and reel it off like that, when the markets are booming and anyone could make money. In times like this, you need those foundations. You need to understand those foundations, because if you don't, you've got nothing to build upon. You haven't got a strong foundation. And then you start looking at your portfolio thinking, you know what, I want to back out of this. And that can do more damage than good. Let's take this question about mortgages. First time buyer. My mortgage app went in the morning, and when they started to pull the deals, I felt lucky at 3.9. A few hours later, it was not available. But now I'm worried about a housing crash. Look, I completely get that. Completely and utterly understand that. Don't worry about a housing crash, okay? You've just bought a house, mate. You've got it on a 3.9 rate, which, based on the 2-year fixed rate across all deposit ranges at the minute, is over 6%. So you've snagged yourself a really, really good deal, and you've bought a house, mate. Look, you could get into the house and the property values might fall 10, 20%. Doesn't matter. You now live in your own house, which will appreciate in value when property prices recover. So don't worry too much about the fact that property values might fall, they might not. People have been saying that property was going to crash over the last 24 months. And what we've seen? We've seen the housing market continue to surge. That might be the case right now. Fundamentally, there is a supply versus demand equation here, and there are still too few houses for the amount of people who actually want to buy them. So to a certain extent, you've got that economic theory, which means that there's always going to be more demand than the supply. Yes, you might have a few landlords be like, oh, you know what, this is my additional income is being eaten away with new interest rates and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and you know, some properties might come onto the market and it might mean that property values fall. Doesn't matter. Think about what you've just done. You've just bought a house, mate, right? That's a roof over your head. That's an asset that is going to give you the ability to build for the future. Don't worry about market values might fall in 5%, whatever. Yeah, it might happen. So what? You've bought yourself a house, mate. So you should really, and that's a great deal at 3.9, especially if rates are at 6% right now. You should feel good about it, mate. All right, let me just do a check. We've got 58 likes at the minute. Can we get that up to 65, please, guys? Come on, let's go. 7 more. I'm also looking at time as well. Where are we? We're at 48 minutes right now. All right, let's have a look at this one. What other financial planning tools would you recommend people looking into? Cash flow modeling tool is a great way to change the way you think about saving slash investing. Keep up the great work. You know what? Other financial tools. Other financial tools. Um, if you're able to find somewhere that is able to track your financial position, I think that's a really good tool that you could have. This is one that I've been thinking about building for some time, but I just haven't got round to it. I need to get someone to actually do it for me, because I'm not really good with Excel sheets. But if you could, and I've got a version of this, it works okay, but it's not perfect. So I wouldn't necessarily want to sell it because it's not perfect. But if you could put in your position, right, for example, actually, there's an app that does this perfectly. Money Hub, right? Money Hub is a great app because you can connect all of your investment accounts, all of your bank accounts, your mortgages, your credit cards in one place. So at a snapshot, you can see everything that you've got under your financial umbrella. You can see absolutely everything in one place. So if you're having specific targets where you're saying, actually, I want to increase my net worth by 20 grand, 30 grand this year, you'll be able to track it in the app. So maybe have a look at that, because that does what I was going to describe in app form. I think they have this thing where you've got a 6-month free trial. They're sponsoring the podcast at the moment. So maybe tomorrow morning, when the podcast episode is live tomorrow, in the show notes of the podcast, click the link there. You'll get a 6-month free trial. And I think after the trial ends, it doesn't automatically put you into the subscription, but I think the subscription is something like $199 or $499 or something like that. It's not expensive, but it's a really, really good tool. And you can link in your mortgages, all sorts of stuff. It's great. Uh, do I think bonds will return to normal? I mean, listen, mate, I wish I could answer that with some level of confidence. The honest, I don't know. Like I said, nothing correlates at the moment. And, obviously, we've got an issue with government gilts here in the UK at the moment. That's a self-inflicted wound. Hopefully, if we manage to restore confidence with the markets in what the government is basically doing, then hopefully it does. But I don't know. I don't think that we could be in a situation where actually it persists that long without any intervention. There's talk that the Bank of England will have to re-intervene if the pound starts to slide and confidence doesn't feel like it's there still. And I think they will, because they will have to. They are the lender of last resort, so it's their job to step in if they do. And I hope at some point it will return to normal. But remember, guys, whatever is happening with the bond market at the moment with the gilts, this is just a moment in time. This is just a moment in time right now. This will pass. Otis is saying he's currently invested 2080 life strategy. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, Vanguard are very, very good at what they do. So I'm sure they're monitoring the situation and stuff. What I would do, though, is maybe have a look at what the bond allocation in the life strategy fund is actually in, so you can get a little bit of comfort around where it's invested. Then what I would then do is go and have a look exactly for what's happening with that portion of it. So, for example, if it says UK government gilts, right, in the bond allocation in your life strategy, go and literally find what might be happening in that space right now and read up. But, Vanguard are pretty good in terms of their selection. They do a lot of due diligence. What would you say to someone with a low credit score below 600 and you're trying to get on the property ladder? You need to build that credit score up, mate, because if you can't, properties are scored slightly differently than personal loans and car finance, credit cards and stuff, because at the end of the day there's collateral. The property is the collateral. They will repossess the home if you're unable to keep up your payments. But that doesn't negate the fact that you still need a strong credit score to qualify for a mortgage and get that agreement in principle. So I would focus on building your credit score as much as possible. Couple of things. First and foremost, go and download ClearScore. That is a free app. You pop in all your information in there. It will tell you what is working against you on your credit report. So the score is 600. The report is what you should be paying attention to, because when you go and apply for the mortgage, that's what the lenders are looking at. They don't care about the number. They don't care about 600. They care about what's on your report. And the report will give a picture of whether you've missed payments, you've been defaulting, whether you've had late payments, whether you have any credit at all. That's the information that you need to focus on improving. Now, ClearScore will tell you, right, these factors are working negatively against you. This is what you need to do about it. So it's free. Go do that. It will update every 30 days. It's a month in arrears. So, for example, for me, where are we right now? We're in October. When it updates this month, it will be for September. When it updates at the at the end of October, it will be for, no, beginning of November, it will be for October. So it's a month in arrears. But things like making sure you're on the electoral roll, really quick win, that will boost your credit score by quite a bit. Make sure you don't miss any payments on your credit cards. If you are using a credit card, make sure that you're not using the full balance, then making minimum payments. That's bad. Nobody likes that. The best thing to do with a credit card is you might have £500 limit. You use it, spend 50 quid, pay that £50 off immediately or within that month, within your statement month. Those little things, you keep doing those, those will push up your score, push up your report even more. As wages stagnate and inflation grows, what do you think about the growing gap between wages and house prices, particularly London? Most prices reduced to correct this. Thanks. Look, London is a beast of its own, really. I mean, London is one of those situations where in London, mate, it's ridiculous, right? So when I was working in Canary Wharf, I knew people who were earning like 100 grand a year, 120 grand a year, who couldn't even afford their own mortgage. It's mind blowing. You're talking £100,000 a year, six figures. It's absolutely nuts to think that you could be earning six figures and not be able to afford a mortgage in London. It's mind blowing. It's just, I don't understand it. But London is a beast of its own. And to be honest, house prices diverging that much from wages, I personally don't know what the fix to that is, especially in a place like London, because the reality is it's a city, is one of the most popular, well, one of the most popular, loved cities in the world. The supply versus demand equation is just so out of kilter, especially with foreign money and investors going in. So it's really, really hard. I know people who have ended up buying places, but it took them a monumental effort to be able to save the amount of deposit that was required for them to get a mortgage in the end, which again goes back to the conversation that we had earlier, right? You can look at this and think, oh my God, it's insurmountable. But guess what? People do it. So it's repeatable. It's just really looking at, right, it's a great big elephant. How do you break it down into small bite-sized chunks? Hopefully, if we do see some kind of market correction in the property arena, hopefully that comes down a little bit. But where that divergence is so big in London, I don't think it can close that gap to the point that it is. What we really need is we need further assistance with things like lifetime ISAs and maybe Help to Buy. I mean, Help to Buy, if you haven't got a property that is built and ready to move in by 31st of October, the Help to Buy is done. You can't use that anymore. So we really need some kind of replacement, and we need higher limits applicable for London. That would help. But we don't know what's going to happen on the housing agenda just yet. I mean, they're talking about building new homes. They've been saying that for years, haven't they? Right, Otis is just saying here. Okay, so maybe so that fund is to help me towards a house deposit in 5 years' time. That I may have to invest in that fund a bit longer and continue to invest. Look, investment theory. Again, I talk about this in my course. If you're investing for 5 years, it's massive risk, mate. Real risk. Let's just say the markets crash this year, next year, and it takes 5-6 years for the markets to return. You're not buying that house, mate. Not only are you not buying the house, but the money that you've invested could be down 20, 30, God forbid, like 2007, 2008, 50%. Think about that, mate. So I was talking about risk management earlier. Risk management is extremely important. And again, you could be using Vanguard. I don't know who you're using, but if you're using the ETFs, they are still invested 100% in equity. So you still have risk attached to it. Risk management is really, really important. My thoughts are, if you're investing for 5 years, it's too much risk, especially with what's going on right now. And I question whether or not you would be better off putting all of that money into a lifetime ISA. £4,000 every single year, you're going to get 25% return from the government. You're not going to get that on the markets, mate. It's all about keeping your eye on the ball, not being greedy. So what do you want? You want market returns, S&P 500, historic returns, which is no indication to future returns, 10%, 11%, right? So I did a video. When did I do this video? I did this video on Let me just check this out because I literally gave a visual representation of the performance of the S&P 500 over the last what the thing tracked over the last 200 years, and you can see how many times the S&P 500, which is everyone's choice market, has performed during that time. So this is the video that I posted on October the 11th. So this is actually this week, right? So on the thumbnail it says, is it over? It's over, or is it? October market crash due in days. That was the title of it. Go watch that video, right? Because even if you are in that fund, you're looking at 11%, 10% return. If you could get that, which in this environment, probably not, right? That's still nothing compared to the 25% free that you're going to get from the government, guaranteed in a lifetime ISA, even if you set it in cash. So it's all about this, and it's the way you see things. People want to chase the markets, invest in the market because it's sexy and it's the right thing to do, right? But you need to keep your eye on the ball. You want to buy a house at the end of the day. You put £4,000 into a lifetime ISA, you're going to get £1,000 from the government, 25% return. £4,000 into the S&P 500, 10% return, that's 400 quid. It's not even close, mate. So it's all about priorities and understanding what is the right thing for you to do and keeping your eye on the prize. The prize isn't getting great investment returns to boost your deposit. The prize is getting a house, is buying a house. And if for the next 5 years you were able to do £4,000 lifetime ISA, £1,000 from the government, that's £25,000 guaranteed, no investment risk. Come on. I've got a video about this on Tuesday. So in opposed to me, I've literally recorded and edited today. So in opposed to me giving away the plot here, watch the video on Tuesday. But look, there's a lot of hot smoke and people just talking absolute nonsense right now. Like, is it happening? Yes, it is. Is it a cause for concern? No, it's not. There are some instances where you probably need to take action. I talk about that in the video on Tuesday. So that's just scheduled for Tuesday, 5 p.m. You'll get the answers in there. But I cover quite a lot in that video in terms of what a pension fund actually does, asset classes, allocation, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, the video on Tuesday will give you the answers that you need there. I've just lost where I was. Conscious of time as well. So where are we right now? We're just over an hour. I'm going to take two more. And then I'm going to call it a night because I've got a load of other stuff that I need to do. Right, let's take this one. With the changes to mortgage interest rates, what are your thoughts on selling property? House prices have been stable for a while. I mean, why would you sell the property? That's the important question, right? Why would you sell the property? Why would you want to sell the property? If you're living in it, you'll sell it and do what exactly? Wait for the markets to crash to buy another one, then you have to go through mortgage applications again, conveyancing fees, maybe or maybe not stamp duty, legal fees. Why would you do it? If you're an investor, then okay, I'm definitely hearing wind of landlords now saying, actually, you know what, it's getting too much now, because with a landlord you've got to think about life insurance costs. You've got to think about insurance costs if a tenant doesn't pay rent. You've got to have money set aside for if the boiler breaks or general servicing needs. That yield that you're getting, the rental yield, is getting eaten away at with mortgage rates increasing. So a lot of landlords are like, oh, sod this, I'm just going to cash in whilst I can and get out. If you're in that situation, then absolutely, it might be the right thing for you to do. But if you're living in the house, it's your home, I don't see any reason why you would sell just because the markets are a little bit choppy. So it's hard to say without knowing the circumstances, but those are generally just my thoughts. Okay, I'm going to take this question as the last one. Hey, Pete, seeing savings accounts tend to have a better rate than the best cash ISAs accounts. Is there ever a point in basic rate taxpayers using the cash ISA when they exceed the allowance? Hang on, let me just get that again. Is there ever a point in basic rate taxpayers using the cash ISA when they exceed the allowance? Well, look, rule of thumb is you use an ISA anyway because it's tax free. And you might as well have it in there because it's not just about your tax bracket changing, right, is the fact that if you've got money in an ISA, you have future tax benefits. And if anything does change, you're ring fencing and protecting yourself. And even if, like, so let's just say you chose a savings account with, I don't know, 5% return, right? And you're a basic rate taxpayer. Let's just say you're under tax thresholds, you pay no tax. Okay, most people will be over that anyway, generally. So you're paying 20%. Why pay that 20% in tax? So I still think that you should use a cash ISA or an ISA generally anyway, because it's good financial planning. But that's just my view. But I think it just makes sense. The first rule of financial planning is tax efficiency. You've got to think about using your tax efficient wrappers. And if you don't use your allowance, you lose it. So why not use it whilst you have it available to you? Those are my thoughts anyway. Okay, I'm very very conscious that there are a lot of comments and questions that, oh god, there's lots that I've not been able to get to. I haven't done one of these in a while purely because it's just time more than anything else. And I did end up in hospital with chest pains, and it was a very very stressful time. And doing this in a Sunday evening, even if it is an hour and a half, and some of the old ones went on to 2 hours, it's still time that I'm taking away from spending time with my partner or just chilling out on a Sunday evening when I typically have a really busy week ahead. So I do enjoy doing these. I do. But it is just a question of time more than anything else in doing this. And when I look at the channel as well, and I think about the efficiency of, YouTube, and my mindset has changed a little bit when it comes to YouTube and what we do here, or at least what I do here. And I'm very aware now that YouTube is almost like a shop front for me. People can see what I do, how I interact, how I answer questions, so on and so forth. I see it as a shop front more than anything else now. If I think about it from a business point of view, running a channel, these live sessions do nothing for my channel growth. They certainly don't earn me any money. I mean, if I think about the AdSense on this video, for the last hour and 6 minutes that I spent on here, I'll probably earn £7 if I'm lucky. Most of the time, these videos will pay me £1.20 by the time people have skipped through ads. If I think about it from a business point of view, it's not worth my time. But I do enjoy answering questions and interacting with people. So I can't promise that I will do another one of these anytime soon. But depending on what happens and what is going on out there, I will sporadically do another one of these. I'm trying to do more live videos, more live reaction videos now, so that people can at least get my thoughts as and when things are happening in the public domain. And I think right now, with everything that's going on, there needs to be an air of, I guess, comfort and keeping people informed. That is really really required right now. And I'm consciously aware that the last few lives have been politically led, because the subject matter is coming from political news, and that's very very divisive, I should say. And people have, people, anyway, I can't say it's necessarily because the video is a political topics, but you'll be surprised at how many people would dislike a video for I don't know what reason. I mean, I the video that I posted the other week, saying, stay the course, I had about 10 people unsubscribe because of that. And I'm like, why? It's a positive story. I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to show people who have followed me for a while that this is where we're going, and hopefully to inspire people. But people are fickle. And if I look at it from a business point of view, YouTube sometimes is great, but there are massive downsides to YouTube and doing these types of things. But I'll try and provide more live commentary where I can across the channel. And that will really be the best way to kind of to get your your questions answered. And I may just say to people that, okay, look, email me, DM your questions, and I might do a live Q&A where I've got maybe 4 or 5 questions prepared. I reel those out on a video. That might be an easier way, but we'll see what happens with the next Q&A, depending on what happens in the news, depending what happens moving forward. But I appreciate you guys spending this time with me on a Sunday evening. It's now 9:30, and I still have to finish off the podcast for tomorrow morning. So appreciate you. There'll be more videos through the week. Like I said, we got the video about pension funds on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, I'm out completely. So there may or may not be any live sessions. If I do a live session, I'm going to be out and about. So it will probably be on my laptop, sound quality might be a bit dodgy, but if it is important, I will do one. But I will always try and make sure that I keep people informed. Thank you so much for showing your support and actually being here. I know there are a ton of you who will watch this. Walter, Asif, Edna. There's tons of you who have been here for a very, very long time, who have followed the channel religiously. And I appreciate every single one of you because you guys make it worthwhile, really and truly. When I want to quit, I think about you guys and you keep me going. So appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy next week as well. Catch you later on.